Less than 1% would go all the way, they said. The kind of person who would do that would have to be deeply disturbed. A rare exception. (1961) Yale University. Stanley Milgram had one question. He'd been watching the Nuremberg trials, reading about ordinary men who did extraordinary things because someone told them to. And he kept thinking, those weren't monsters, those were people. So what does that mean for the rest of us? He built a test to find out. He thought he knew the answer. He didn't. People showed up thinking it was a memory study, nothing unusual. A lab, a researcher, a white coat. They were told they'd be asking questions to someone in the next room, and every wrong answer meant a small electric shock. Every subsequent wrong answer, a little more. Simple enough. They sat down at the device and looked at the dial. 15 volts at one end, 450 at the other. The study began. What they didn't know was that the person in the next room was an actor. The shocks weren't real, but they didn't know that. At 150 volts, the actor started protesting. At 300, he was pounding the wall. After 330, nothing. Silence. And when someone turned to the researcher and said they wanted to stop, the researcher looked at them and said calmly, "Please, continue the experiment." That's it. That's all he said. No threats, no pressure, no consequences. Just a calm voice, a white coat, 4 words. Here's the thing about the people in that room. They weren't enjoying it. One man laughed, not because he found it funny. His body just didn't know what else to do. A woman kept saying, "I can't do this. I can't do this." And then continued anyway. People were shaking, sweating, visibly distressed. They didn't want to be there, but they stayed. And that's the part that's hard to sit with, because these weren't cruel people doing cruel things. These were normal people doing something they hated, because stopping felt harder than continuing. Before the experiment, Milgram asked psychiatrists to predict the results. Less than 1% would go all the way, they said. The kind of person who would do that would have to be deeply disturbed. A rare exception. 2 out of 3. Not 1%. Not some rare, broken exception. 2 out of every 3 people who sat down in that chair went all the way to 450 volts. And I bet right now, you're certain you would have stopped. But the psychiatrists were certain too. And they were wrong by a factor of 65. Milgram spent years trying to explain what he'd found. He called it the agentic state. The moment a person stops acting as an individual and starts acting as an instrument of someone else's will. And here's the uncomfortable part. It doesn't feel dramatic when it happens. It feels like following instructions. It feels like doing your job. It feels, in that moment, completely reasonable. The responsibility belongs to someone else. The researcher is responsible. The experiment is responsible. Not you. You're just doing what you were asked. He ran the experiment over a dozen times, with small changes. When the authority figure left the room, compliance dropped sharply. When participants could see the person they were shocking, it dropped further. And when one other participant refused to continue, most people followed and stopped too. The situation was everything. Change one element, change the outcome. Which means the 65% weren't uniquely weak. They were just in a specific situation most of us have never been tested in. And we don't know how we'd do. We only know how we think we'd do. Those are not the same thing. That person wasn't a monster. They were a volunteer. A normal person who showed up that morning to help with a memory study. And they pressed the button anyway. Not because they wanted to, because stopping felt harder than continuing.